Hey everyone, it's Steve from the garden. In today's video, I'm going to be doing a seed starting experiment. I've been having trouble with germination this year, so I'm going to do an experiment where I'm going to do some different mixes using all the same lettuce seed and see how the different mixes affect the germination and then the overall growth up into, maybe a couple inches. All right, so let's get started. Now I got my tray already kind of prepared. So I'm doing it 100% peat moss, 75% peat moss, 25% leaf mold, 50% peat moss, 50% leaf mold, 75% leaf mold, 25% peat moss. And I got one cell that's all Pro Mix. And I have a cell where I did 50% peat moss, 50% leaf mold, but I also added a pinch of vermiculite to it. This cell here, this is 50% leaf mold, 50% peat moss with a little bit of organic balanced fertilizer. So I want to see if that fertilizer affects the germination at all. This is the seed starting mix I have been using, so it'll be kind of like my control. And this one is my seed starting mix, but with a little bit of fertilizer in it. So I'm using all the same lettuce seeds. And I'm going to add, probably like 4 or 5 lettuce seeds per cell, which should give me more than I need for each cell to ensure, a decent germination rate. And we can also evaluate, I'll say 5 seeds. Did we get 3 come up? Did we get 1 come up? What's that percentage germination that we get? I have all the seeds in place, and I did put water in all the cells. And the first immediate observation I have is that the cell with 100% peat moss, it's absorbing the water the slowest. Now the peat moss is kind of dry, even though I started wetting it all down yesterday. But that peat moss, even though peat moss can hold a great deal of water, within it, if it gets too dry, it's very slow to re-moisturize. And then as you add more leaf mold to each cell, the ones with more leaf mold absorb the water much faster. The Pro Mix, which is the only commercial mix I'm using in this experiment, it absorbed water pretty fast, as did these two that have the 50-50 mix with either vermiculite or the fertilizer in it. So we'll come back in a week or two, let the seeds germinate, and we'll see how quickly they germinated and what the overall germination rate is, and then we'll follow them through the first, like inch or two to see how that overall growth works out and how long it takes them to get that far. So we'll be back in a moment. It's been a week since I started my seed starting mix germination testing, so let's take a look and see how they did. Just a quick review of how much peat leaf mold they had. This is 100% peat, 75, 50, 25. This was Pro Mix. This was 50-50 with vermiculite, 50-50 with some balanced organic fertilizer. This is my original seed starting mix. This was the original seed starting mix with a little bit of balanced organic fertilizer in it. So if we take a first look, the peat, 100%, the 75%, they both have germination. The 50% has 1 in there. My original mix looks like it has 1 plant plus 1, I'm guessing that's a weed that's growing up right there. Nothing in the 25 to 75%. Nothing in the original mix with the balanced organic fertilizer added. I do have 1 seedling coming up in the Pro Mix, 1 in the 50-50 mix with vermiculite, and looks like 2 seeds in the 50-50 with balanced organic fertilizer to it. We'll check back next week and see how they're doing at that point. So we'll see you in a moment. Another week has passed and we're ready to check on the plants again. We actually have a nice sunny bright day out today, and temperature wise it's not bad at all. It's going to be in the mid 40s. Well, let's go ahead and take a look at the lettuce plants and see where we're at. We've had some growth over the past week. We'll start with the cell that had 100% peat moss. Now, I actually had 2 plants, but one of them died, and this other one's not looking too good. 75% peat moss, 25% leaf mold. This one's looking very good. In fact, I need to start thinning this out. Now we've got 5 seedlings in here, and we've planted 5 seeds in this cell. So we have 100% germination, but it's going to be too crowded, so I need to thin out the weakest ones. Let's see. Pull that one out. I guess we'll leave this one right here, and we'll pull these others. The 50-50 mix, that seedling is there, but it's only 1. The 75 leaf mold, 25% peat moss, there's nothing. The Pro Mix, we have 2 seedlings in here, and I'm going to go ahead and thin out the one that's on the edge, leaving the one that's in the center. The 50-50 mix with vermiculite, that one's okay. There's just 1 seedling there. The 50-50 mix with their balanced organic fertilizer. I do have some seedlings in here. One of the seedlings I did have died, but there's looks like maybe 3 more that are coming up. Now my original seed starting mix, I just have the 1 plant, and I have a second one that's coming up, and it looks like I have a weed or something that's in there too. I'm going to go ahead and thin out this extra one and just leave the 1 strong plant. And then this cell basically has nothing in it, so nothing's germinating out of there. Although it does look like there might be a weed that was in there too. So that's it for this week's check-in. We'll check in again next week to see where the plants are at. Hey everyone, another week has passed, so let's go ahead and check in on the lettuce. As you can see, we've had some growth over the last week. Now the 100% peat moss, it's still not doing all that great. The 75% peat moss, 25% leaf mold, that one's doing good, and we thinned that one out last week. And this one we had 100% germination on. The 50-50 mix, it's okay, I suppose. It's a little bit behind the other ones. Now the 75% leaf mold, 25% peat moss, that one actually has some germination now. That one's just getting started. The Pro Mix, the main plant, is doing great actually, and we've now had 100% germination because we now have 4 more seedlings that came up. So I need to thin those out. So we'll go ahead and just pull those out. We don't need those. We'll just keep the 1 plant. The 50-50 mix with the vermiculite. Now this one, I think we might have thinned this out last week. I'd have to double check on it. But this plant is doing quite well. And we have 3 more seedlings in here. So at a minimum, we have 80% germination rate on this. And I'm going to go ahead and thin those out too. Now the 50-50 mix with the balanced organic fertilizer. We actually do have seedlings coming up. They don't look all that good, but we do have 3 of them there. My original potting mix, this plant's looking good. And I have 3 seedlings in here. So that gives us a minimum of 80% germination. But I'm going to go ahead and thin that out also. Now my original mix with the balanced organic fertilizer in it, that one has no germination. So it really looks like adding balanced organic fertilizer to the seed starting mix causes interference with germination rates. So going forward, I'll make sure I do not add balanced organic fertilizer to the seed starting mix and only fertilize the plants after they've kind of gotten going and are established and a little bit larger. Judging by the growth that we've had, I'd say that next week, at least 4 of these plants will be ready to either transplant into a container or pot them up in some way. So we'll check in one more time next week, to wrap up. One more week has passed since we did our last check-in. So let's take one final look at the plants to see how this germination experiment worked out. So here we are. Most of these plants are ready to be potted up or put outside. It's a little bit too cold to put them outside yet, so I'll be potting them up first. So the 100% peat moss, between all the plants, it's not last, but I'd say it's second to last. The 75% peat moss, 25% leaf mold, that one did okay. The 50-50 mix, that one did well. I'd say that's the second best. The 75% leaf mold, 25% peat moss, that one's doing the worst at the moment. The Pro Mix, that plant did well. It looks like maybe it needs a little bit of nitrogen though. It's turning just a little bit yellow. The 50-50 mix with vermiculite, that one's done the best for sure. Plant looks very healthy, it's green, and it's the largest. The 50-50 mix with the balanced organic fertilizer. The couple seedlings I had in there died. My original seed starting mix, that one's not doing bad either. That one might have a little bit of a nitrogen deficiency also, because the leaves aren't quite as dark as like this 50-50 mix with the vermiculite in it. And my original seed starting mix with the balanced organic fertilizer, there is still nothing growing in that. So that concludes my little seed germination experiment with the different soil mixes. Hope you found this informative and will help you out in the future. If you want to share your thoughts on this, go ahead and leave a comment down below and I'll do my best to respond to them. So until then, I hope you enjoyed, got something out of this, and we'll see you on the next one.